Next is a presentation on student services. Dr. Valesky, did you want to introduce that one?
Certainly. This is an annual report. We are tonight, Mrs. Danielle Blaylock and Mrs. Shannon Campbell are going to present the department status for HIB reporting, I believe, and for guidance as well.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So while we're waiting for that to get up on the screen, my name is Danielle Blaylock. I'm the Supervisor of Student Services. Thank you for having me back, as you do year after year, to report out on the 2015-16 school year. Tonight I'm going to be presenting with Ms. Shannon Campbell, who is the Department Chair of Guidance, grades 8 through 12. Okay, it looks like we are up and running. So I want to start by saying thank you to Dr. Valesky, Mr. Simmons, and the Board of Education for allowing us to come again tonight to share out about the Student Services Report. Specifically, I want to take a moment to thank you for all of the support that you've given to the school counseling department over the past year. In the past year, we were able to hire the department chair, Ms. Shannon Campbell, to help support in the secondary schools, as well as you have supported us in adding 3 additional school counselors. The additional counseling staff have helped allow us the opportunity to reduce the caseloads at both Churchill and the high school and give us more intensive support for the students on those caseloads. The Student Services Department, which consists of the student assistance specialists as well as the school counselors, are a collaborative group that work together to support the needs of the whole child. So this would be the academic, the social, and the emotional needs of each student. So tonight we're going to highlight some of those programs that we've been doing throughout the year. To start, our focus this past year in terms of staff development and trainings has been the following that you can see on the screen. We updated our staff training on HIB and rolled that out to all of the school staff in our November Staff Development Day, our Professional Development Day. We developed a 10-month counseling calendar, which increased our anti-bullying programming and character education programming in all of our elementary schools so that there was consistency between those schools. We implemented the Superflex curriculum in all of the elementary schools. It had been a little bit sporadic, so we made sure that everyone was on the same page, kindergarten and first. We were able to bring all of our elementary student assistance specialists to attend the social cognition training to support them with rolling out that Superflex curriculum. We also had our staff trained on the effects of developmental trauma and how that impacts teaching and learning, as well as the role of the INRS team and self-care. As you know, in East Brunswick, the role of the student assistance specialist is vast. These are things that they do on a daily basis. They co-chair the INRS committee, make child study team referrals, co-chair Section 504 committee meetings. They serve as our homeless liaisons, provide individual and group counseling. They serve as our anti-bullying specialists and investigate all accusations of HIB. They co-chair the safety committee, conduct risk assessments, make DCP and P referrals, and provide crisis counseling for students and families and those suffering from potential drug addictions. In addition to completing these tasks, they also monitor trends and statistics each year. And we look at those trends and statistics and use that to drive our programming for the next year. We look at where we need more support, and then we look to change our presentation to help support the students. Some noteworthy data from this year includes that our child abuse reports district-wide went down, our drug screenings and positive screens went up. This past year, we screened 54 students, and 34 of them were positive, which was up from the previous year, where there were 28 screens, and 13 were positive. We believe that there are a few reasons for this. First, we've increased our drug and alcohol programming in our health classes. We encourage our students to come forward and disclose when they believe that they might need help. Second, our counseling staff has had the opportunity to spend more time with the students. Now that the caseloads are lower, we can increase and build that rapport with the students, encourage them to come forward, share that information with us. In addition, we've revised our list of community resources and agencies, so we're better able to provide the counselors with additional resources and help connect the families with those resources. The number of students that we sent out for risk assessments also went up from 2 to 8 at elementary schools and from 64 to 75 at secondary. But again, we feel that this is an indication of the better training that we're providing for the students and the staff on identifying warning signs and being able to provide them with appropriate counseling services. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shannon Campbell, and she's going to talk about some of the school counseling programs.
Good evening. The role of the school counselor is similar to the student assistance specialist, however, not identical. They work collaboratively to provide a comprehensive plan of service to our students. School counselors also provide individual counseling. They also provide interviews as students transition into new buildings and as they move across grade levels in our buildings. They provide academic, college, and career goal setting and follow up with those students to monitor the progress of achieving those goals. They also serve as a liaison between students, parents, and teachers. They also provide group counseling. If you see listed above, there's a number of different groups and various topics that counselors may form counseling groups based on needs of students. Groups are a great way to address the similar needs of multiple students while having them benefit by working through similar issues alongside their peers. We also provide large group classroom lessons on various topics. They assist with standardized testing organization and facilitation. They serve as case coordinators for the INRS committee to manage the implementation of INRS interventions and action plans, as well as monitoring attendance action plans for our students that have attendance concerns and issues. The main components of the school counseling program include career development, personal social development, and post-secondary planning. I will be speaking more specifically about the programs and activities that support these areas. The 2015-16 school year was the 4th year of utilizing the Naviance software that the district purchased to assist students in exploring future interests, all the way from middle school, where they're learning about how they learn best by taking a learning style inventory, all the way up to using those interests and applying them to college searches, career searches, and taking them through the college application and admissions process. This year, we also highlighted a few additional programs. At Churchill Junior High School, the counseling team put together a career fair for our 9th grade students, where they had the opportunity to speak with various community professionals about their career. We had an elective fair at East Brunswick High School this spring before students were selecting their courses for the following school year. This provided an opportunity for students to mingle around and ask questions about certain courses and what activities may be taking place in those courses and how they would be aligned with future interests and goals. In addition, we had a military panel come to the counseling office. Students were invited that were interested in possibly pursuing branches of the armed services. We had representatives from local branches of the Army, Navy, ROTC, Air Force, and the Marines. And students were able to ask questions about what types of possible assignments they may have or what that experience may look like. As far as preparing for college or post-secondary careers, we have a vast program beginning in grade 8 all the way through grade 12, which serves as a foundation in grade 8 and builds upon each following year, culminating in college acceptance or a career plan or career path and job performance. So in grade 8, we begin by introducing the students to the concept of what a high school transcript looks like, why that's important, and how the work that they're doing in 8th grade and the following years will be a building block and a reflection all the way through their high school year. In grade 9, we discuss graduation requirements, prepare course selections for students centered around their interests, and additionally, during this time, we're using Naviance as a guide for them to be exploring careers, possible interests. By clicking through that program, there's interactive videos, there's information about salaries, there's information about what colleges in the area offer that major, could help you pave the way for that future career. And at the high school level, it's really more individualized meetings and appointments that are ongoing, centered around personal interests and goals, and then aligning those goals to the right college program and then the right college for each individual student, and then taking those students through the college application process. In addition, this year we also coordinated the first ever senior seminar. The district this year gave students the opportunity to take the PSAT test during the school day, the 10th and 11th graders. And during that time, seniors participated in the senior seminar. It was coordinated by the counseling department. Students participated in 3 different sections. One part, they worked on college essays in the media center with the assistance of our English teachers and some of the counseling staff. They then went to a panel in the auditorium where they heard from various college admissions counselors, members of the military, and other professionals. And they ended with a trip to the cafeteria where they had a speaker from Berkeley College talk about interviewing skills that could be relevant for college interviews and future career interviews. We also have an instant decision day. We have a relationship with Middlesex County College where one of their admissions counselors comes right to East Brunswick High School. Students are able to come in with their application and get an on-the-spot decision and acceptance into Middlesex County Community College. And one of the favorite days for the students and for the alumni is Senior Alumni Day, where the students return back to East Brunswick High School, visit our senior English classes, and talk about their experience at their first semester at college, what it's like, what they might expect. And it's really a fun day for all of the students, staff, and the alumni. Our transitional programming has really grown over the last few years. We've really taken a look at how students are transitioning from each building, especially from elementary school to Hammersholt. Seems to be the biggest transitional phase for our students. They're going from that really small environment to a really big new place. So the last 2 years, the counselors worked at Hammersholt Middle School to revamp that program. And now the 5th graders come to Hammersholt before the end of the school year in 5th grade, and they practice opening combination locks, and they get to see the cafeteria, which they're really excited about, and try some of the food, and get to really mingle with some of the students that they're going to be in their classes with, which is a big anxiety for them. And then they return in the summer, which they're about to do on Monday, and get to walk their schedule and visit the building and, see all those students that hopefully they saw in the springtime when they were there as well. Also, moving into 8th grade at Churchill Junior High School, we have the Churchill counselors go down to Hammersholt in 7th grade, speak to the students, and then they're invited again into 8th grade to Churchill in the summer through Churchill's orientation program that just happened yesterday and today. And then for 10th grade students, we have these high school counseling staff going down to speak to the 10th graders individually for scheduling appointments in the spring. And then those 10th graders return to East Brunswick High School over the summer. They just came today to get oriented to the school, get a tour, get their ID, speak with their counselors, and really get a good feel for the school so that on the first day, they're really ready to go. In addition, all new students to the district are invited to attend all of the building orientations regardless of what grade they're in, and they're paired up with a buddy. That way that on the first day of school, they're in a new place, they have one of our veteran students there to guide them around and offer them support for the first few days of school. And usually those relationships do last over time, so that's very nice. And we also have parent evenings to support the counseling program. We have a sophomore parent night, junior parent night, senior parent night, and a financial aid night so that we can inform and educate and assist parents through the process of post-secondary planning. The school counseling staff assists with the administration of the following assessments: the PSAT testing, 10th and 11th graders, PARCC testing, AP testing, the New Jersey Biology Competency Testing, as well as this year with the ASVAB testing. This year we brought in the ASVAB military entrance exam as a possible exam for our students to meet the state graduation requirement. It allowed some of our students who were not very good at participating in the traditional standardized testing as we think about it, but more of a practical based test, and it allowed them to demonstrate proficiency in graduation requirements. The data that we gained from the PSAT testing also provides us with information for teachers to guide their instruction and to individualize student learning, as well as provide us with the opportunity to have future predictors of potential for success in AP classes. The last piece of our comprehensive program is the social emotional learning piece. The first two bullets up there, the anti-bullying inclusion elementary visits and the assembly at Hammersholt Middle School, are collaborative efforts between the high school students, the counseling departments at both building levels, and the students. And we think this is really important to have our students go down to different levels of buildings and speak to fifth grade students, speak to sixth grade students, talk about their experiences now that they're older, about why it's so important to be inclusive and to, be open-minded and to go up to that student who's alone and invite them to join in instead of, leaving people out. So those assemblies are something that we'd like to look to continue in the future. In addition, our counseling staff across the secondary buildings participates in the No One Eats Alone at Lunch Day, the Day of Silence, Respect Week activities, Violence Prevention Week activities, positive behavior support programs at Hammersholt Middle School and Churchill, and finally the Sources of Strength program. This is a program that was brought into the district last year by Mrs. Blaylock and has really taken off, and she's going to come back up and tell you a little bit more about what we've done this year with the program. Thank you.
So last year, I introduced you to the Sources of Strength peer leadership program that I was really excited we were able to bring to the district through a grant programming, through Rutgers UBHC. And Sources of Strength, just as a reminder, is a national model of suicide prevention as well as bullying prevention. It utilizes groups of peers in the schools and matches them with also groups of positive adult role models in the schools, and they link together to do programming. The purpose of Sources of Strength is to continue to build and increase that positive climate in school that we know is so important. It decreases bullying, it decreases substance abuse, it decreases issues of mental health, or at a minimum, the stigma that sometimes mental health has had, and it decreases school violence. So we are now finishing our second year with having Sources of Strength both at Churchill and the high school. It has continued to grow, and we have a list of both students and teachers that would like to get on board for next year. So I'm really excited about that. This is a sample of some of the activities calendar that was done throughout the year at the high school. Again, the group focuses on positive messaging campaigns and building resiliency and coping strategies. We know that all students are going to experience stress, but it's a matter of teaching them those positive coping strategies that they can call on during times of stress, and also teach them who are those positive adults in their life as well as in the school building that they can go to for support. The activities focused on having fun, reducing stress, coping with stress in a positive way, and also connecting to those positive adults and the school community. There were multiple activities that also focused on the pillar of generosity, giving back to the community. Our Jeans for Teens was a huge success. The students at the high school were able to gather hundreds of jeans to give back to homeless shelters and students who are in domestic violence shelters, and they felt great about that, productive activity. So giving back is also a really important part of Sources of Strength. So we have some pictures here of some activities, and you can see we're getting a huge group of students to come out and participate in these positive events, as well as the teaching staff within the building. So with all that being said about last year, we're already prepared, Ms. Campbell and I, to move into next year, expand our vision, and figure out where we're going to go now. Mike Vanella, Dr. Vanella always quotes his 2020 vision, so we are in the mindset of our 2020 counseling vision. Where do we want to go and continue to grow the counseling department? In terms of the elementary level, what we're looking to do next year is continue to expand those mentor programs in the high school, in all of the schools. Mentors, positive adults in the building, are proven, evidence-based, that it continues to get students to feel comfortable in school, to feel accepted, makes them want to come to school and want to be successful. So we want to continue to expand that. We want to continue to expand our social cognition thinking, which is that Superflex curriculum, beyond the K-2 in all of the elementary schools. At the secondary level, we want to continue to develop our drug and alcohol prevention programming in conjunction with East Brunswick's Municipal Alliance. That's a committee that I sit on with a student assistance specialist from the district. They have been very supportive to the district in providing us some grant funding to get additional drug and alcohol programming in our schools. So we want to continue to expand that relationship and that programming. We want to continue to focus on our school safety teams and the HIB programming that they bring to the schools. Continue to expand Sources of Strength, as we've said. Continue to expand those connections between our high school students and our younger grades, the elementary schools in Hammersholt. We feel that that connection is really important, both to the elementary students as well to the high school students, being able to give back and share their experiences. And continue with our Naviance training, both for students, parents, and staff. In terms of all of the schools, elementary and secondary, we want to build a trauma response team. This is something that I've been working with the school counseling staff and the student assistance specialists over the summer. And what that means is looking at being preventative. Should there be a trauma in the school, a traumatic event, how can our counseling staff be prepared to cope with and help the students, staff, and parents deal emotionally with that event of trauma? So that's something that we worked on through the summer, and we're going to continue to work through during the school year. We want to continue to improve the transitioning program through the schools. As you've heard from Ms. Campbell, we've made a lot of strides over the past couple years, but we want to continue to grow that ability to have the students ease through their transition through the schools. And something I'm really excited about is the Student Services Department is going to be working to participate in a Parent University series this year. I've been working with Ms. Debbie Gulick on a Parent University program. Student Services is going to have 3 of those parent nights, so we would welcome any and all parents to participate. We are going to have a session on raising resilient kids. We are going to have a session on cyberbullying. And finally, in March, we are going to have a session on drug and alcohol prevention. So we're really excited about that for this school year. So thank you for having us tonight to share out about all of our programs. And I already see we have a question.
Mrs. Benson.
Thank you so much, both of you ladies, for a really thorough, interesting, well-delivered report. Couple of questions. First, I have to give a shout out to Naviance. I do it every year. Having gone through the college process with one child using Naviance, and 8 years before that without Naviance, just my dining room table, me, and a bunch of folders and self-addressed stamped envelopes. I can tell you that Naviance made a huge difference, and I cannot support it enough and give the district kudos for bringing it to us and encourage parents and kids. It is just such a huge help. Okay, as far as questions go, I want to go back, Danielle, about the positive screens, the numbers going up significantly.
Yep.
So first of all, that number, the 53 screens that were done, is that grades 10 through 12, 9 through 12?
That's district-wide.
District-wide, K
That's-
through 12.
That's district-wide. We did not have any screens this year at elementary, I can say. We had a few at Hammersholt. The majority of those screens were at the high school. There were a few at Churchill. I
Okay.
could get you the breakdown, but there were no screens at elementary.
Even at just the high school, there's approximately, what, almost 2,300 kids, something like that. I'm not trivializing 53 at all, okay? It's 53 too many.
Correct.
But in my mind, it's still a very small number, particularly when you say that is representative K through 12, 8, 9,000 kids. Do you have any sense, and I'm putting you on the spot about this, I don't expect you to have these figures with you tonight. Do you have any sense of how that compares to other districts of similar size and socioeconomical makeup?
That's a good question. I can say, based on some of the meetings that I go to with colleagues within the field, that, as we know, Monmouth County has unfortunately been hit fairly hard, very hard, with an increase in drugs and alcohol use, especially from youth. I don't know off the top of my head in terms of percentages where we stand.
Yeah, I would just be
think that
curious.
53, like you said, I don't want to trivialize it at all. We want to hit every single student. But I think the thing to keep in mind is that unfortunately we live in a society where there are drugs and alcohol. And there are kids, and kids are kids, and they make mistakes, and they try things. But what I wanted to bring to the table tonight was the fact that we have been really hitting our students and reinforcing, if you have a concern about your own behavior or you have a concern about a friend, bring it to us. If you're open and honest and you come to us for help, there won't be a consequence for that. We can get you help. Those kids are part of the screen.
Right.
So a lot of these numbers are kids that came forward themselves and said, you know what? I'm identifying that I'm having some concerns. I want you to help me. And we put them on a program where we try to help them and work with their outside therapist or whatever treatment program they're going through. So some of that 53, like I said, their students are coming forward themselves that are feeling that comfortable with the staff to self-identify and want the help.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's half the battle.
Right.
Again, I don't know what to do with that number, because I don't know if in West Windsor,
Right.
North Brunswick,
How
Would
does
you
it
like us to
compare?
get some information and
yeah,
report back to the board?
that number is 4 times as high or a lot. I don't, 54 out of almost 9,000 sounds
Let us get you some reference
great.
numbers.
Thank you.
Okay?
Right.
Perfect. Whenever.
Danielle, can you speak for just one moment about the impact of the SSOs in
Absolutely.
identification of substance abuse?
Absolutely. I think
Can I
we
just have
both
one
can
more
speak
question?
to that. So since the district has
Sorry.
implemented those full-time school resource officers in the schools, we have seen a tremendous increase in kids being able to connect with those people. Ms. Campbell, Dr. Vanella have worked with the school resource officers, been able to identify, here are some students that are at risk. They have their school counselor, they have their student assistant specialist, but we'd also like you to talk to them. So we have the school resource officer that also will meet with those students, talk with them about different options, things they need to consider, and they're really building a bridge for us with those students that we want to catch and try to support. support.
And they're also speaking to them about some of the more serious consequences about being involved, potentially with violence or drugs and alcohol, or different things that some of these students might be experimenting with at the moment, but really kind of showing them the path that if you go down here, this could be really what happens to you, and let's work together to try to get you on a different path.
Thank you. Yeah, whenever you can get those numbers. And I just have one more question. This is the first year I remember hearing as much about bringing representatives from the armed forces on campus and providing access to the ASVAB test. I'm just curious, is this in response to any kind of requests or initiatives from the parents and students, or is this something the district felt we should be doing and we hadn't?
Well, I think that that's twofold. I think that we focus sometimes a little bit, a lot on college and a lot on college, and some of our students, most of them are going to college, but some of them are not going to college,
right.
And giving them the opportunities to explore other avenues. Also, the ROTC program within college, we have members of Rutgers ROTC come and talk to the students about how they can be part of the armed services and still part of college and get financial assistance with college and get great experiences. So we really need to open that door to those students. The days that we set up are based on student interest. So students come down and sign up, yes, I'd like to get more information, and then based on if we have any student interest, then we have the panel come in. The ASVAB test was really brought about as another way for the students to be able to meet a pathway to the graduation requirements for the standardized testing. The state used to have the HESPA as the graduation requirement for students to pass in order to get a high school diploma in New Jersey. And now they're switching over to the PARCC testing, as we know. And in the interim, until we've got the PARCC testing fully implemented, there from the classes of 2016 to 2020, or maybe even 21, I believe, that they can have multiple ways to meet graduation requirements: PSAT, SAT, ACT, AccuPlacer, and the ASVAB testing. So what's different about the ASVAB test is that it's more practical and technical based, and it's based on skills that students would have, and their way that they're demonstrating knowledge of certain topics is more practically based. Instead of some of our more routine standardized tests as we think about it, reading a word problem or doing a math problem or reading a paragraph and answering questions. So the way that the test is structured is different, and it gives students an alternate opportunity to demonstrate proficiency in different areas. So we found that some of our students who were having trouble passing some of those other tests were able to pass this test.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so that's great. So we're really looking at the different ways that kids learn and that kids are able to demonstrate that knowledge and expertise, and providing them with even more options that will fit them.
Yeah,
That's
sure,
great.
and lead them to future success
That's
as
great.
well. Yeah, so that was
Thank you.
positive. You're welcome.
Shannon, do you recall how many students, I know we had a handful of students that met the graduation requirement with the ASVAB. Was it 4 or 5?
That did or
That did.
I believe it may have been even higher. I think it may have been 9 kids. Total,
Okay.
out of the 30 that we gave the test to.
So if that's 9 kids who were able to demonstrate something on a test, whereas the other ones they wouldn't have been able to, that's great.
Yeah,
Are
and
they
some of the
broad enough,
students.
though, to really say that it's reflective of someone who has a high school education? I didn't know whether the focus of some of these tests was much more narrow than HESPA or PARCC or the SAT. I just wonder if, others consider them to truly be equivalent examinations of the knowledge that should be gained in high school.
I believe that they're looking for the students to be able to demonstrate the same knowledge and skills through a different avenue. So the state establishes different cut scores on the different assessments. So, what might look like a certain score on a PSAT, the state established that this cut score of a 22 meant that you were proficient in meeting your high school requirements. So that must be equivalent to the score that they're asking for on the ASVAB test. And there's different parts of the ASVAB test, and this qualifying score for graduation was a combination of the English and math portions of the ASVAB test. There were also other areas of science and a technical piece of it. And those scores are also important, but they didn't add up to the composite score used for the graduation requirement. So I do believe it's a good alternative for our students to demonstrate their skills in a different way. And we also did open that test up to students who were interested in attending the military at some point to sit for that test as well. Now, their scores are not sent to the military, they're not passed anywhere, they're just kept right, in-house with us. If the students did want to use them for military entrance, they have to go to the local recruiting office, sign a release to pull their scores from our school, and then they would be able to access them.
Dr. Cohen and then Mr. Flipzak.
Thank you. I too wanted to thank you for the presentation. As usual, the emphasis seems to be on what we should be doing, which is identifying problems early, prevention, trying to pick up problems at an early stage, like in any disease, so that the ultimately outcome would be improved. I do have a couple questions. The first one is, I thought that, if I recall, maybe I'm wrong, in the past when we've gotten these reports, it would always reflect the years before so that we could identify if there were trends or changes by year to year in any of these statistics. Is there a reason that's...
I don't have a copy of the report that you have, but the last page of those three does have a comparison.
Yeah, no, I saw that, but
to
it's
the year
only...
before. So it's a duplicate of the years prior, since I've been in this position.
Okay.
And then in the summary, where there's the narrative portion, I gave some of the comparisons for the year
Okay. I mean,
prior.
is it possible at some point to look at old numbers?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, I could pull the old reports from years past.
The other thing, I had read, and I just don't remember now since I read from so many different places, but there was a report that was just recently issued that New Jersey has a standard set of a drug screen kit that tests for X number of tests, and that's the standard that's required around the state for almost any public school or public entity. But that there's actually now newer tests that encompass additional testing specifically designed to pick up use of prescription medication, which isn't traditionally tested on some of the tests that we are required in the state mandates.
Right.
Which test do we use?
So we use the standard panel, and we've also included the opiates and the synthetics over the years, because synthetics was something that has become a concern. We do test for prescription medication. In fact, one of our positive drug screens from this year was indicative of that. But I certainly could reach out to, we work with LabCorp, so I certainly could reach out to them and ask what panels they are offering, if there's something of a higher level that we could be looking at. The majority of our positive screens, all but the one, were positive for marijuana, and there was one that was positive for a prescription medication.
And do we, I think I asked this last year, do we stock Narcan?
We do not. The police department, the local police department, it has the ability to get to the school, we feel, within a very reasonable amount of time and administer Narcan. Our nurses are not currently trained in the administration of Narcan.
Is that something we're looking at?
It's something we can look at. We have worked so closely with the police department, and they have such a quick response time that we haven't had the concern. We have also not seen at any of our schools
Right.
an overdose due to heroin.
I'm wondering if there's really any downside in training them. Would there be?
I don't think they're as expensive as the EpiPen is now.
Yes, so they did reduce the price today of the EpiPens, but yeah.
One of the issues is training our nursing staff, and especially if you're dealing with a violent situation, in administering the Narcan.
We would want the police department
Yeah,
there
I-
anyway.
I can
From what I
understand.
understand, if you come out of one of those situations, people tend to be very combative. So we would definitely want the police department there
Yeah.
anyway. And like I said, we haven't seen it
Yeah.
in our schools, thank goodness.
That's new, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips.
Again, thank you for your report. I have to mention, I think you identify that period of time from grammar school into the Hammer Shoal is an important time for students. And I think the program you have in getting the children acclimated, I know it doesn't seem like so important, but when you have a child go through it, it's really traumatic, not traumatic, I would say
It's a big change.
a step.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a big
and
change.
I think we do a very good job of it, because when they do go into school, they seem to be very acclimated to the school. And I think that the locker is the hardest part of the whole time. So once they get that part done, it's fine. And I know that you invite the parents to come in and go through the schedule as children. And they walk through the period of time and think. I personally was waiting for 5 or 6 weeks of more meetings for the parents, but I know we really don't need it. The children seem to be more able and more able to actually come into school easier than the parents do. But I appreciate the program they have, and I want to thank you for continuing it.
Thank you for recognizing that. Both Ms. Campbell and myself happen to have been school counselors at Hammersholt for many years, and we both found and identified, and the staff identified, that seems to be the most difficult transition. So we really did, Ms. Campbell, once I had come into this position, it was really Ms. Campbell with the rest of the department that really worked to revamp that program and increase it to 2 orientations as opposed to the 1, and really focus on the areas that the students were identifying. We also have a program that's going on now that you might not be aware of, where Ms. Batista, who's a counselor at Hammersholt, works collaboratively with the student assistant specialists at the elementary schools. She goes down there, she talks to the 5th graders and invites them to write their concerns to the students at Hammersholt, the 6th and 7th graders. And then Ms. Batista works with the 6th and 7th graders to write responses back to the students and answer their questions and try to put them at ease about the transition. So there's an opportunity for a written back and forth between the students where they can talk about their experiences and get some good advice from the Hammersholt students, and that's been really successful. This past year we implemented it, so we're looking to continue it for next year.
It is absolutely the toughest transition in the district. And I just want to assure you, Kurt, that you are absolutely right. The kids do it so much easier. All the worrying that the parents do about it is
Right.
nowhere near
It is.
their level of comfort.
Right.
So you will get through it. We will get you through it.
I got one more to do, but that's it. Okay, thank you.
And if I may, just momentarily, I know this transition, looking at the transition to Hammersholt was something that the board had requested us look at, and at the direction of Dr. Valesky, both Ms. Blaylock and Ms. Campbell and their staff took a lot of ownership on that and went at it, and kudos to you on doing that. And I know it's a continued process, so I will continue to work towards making it an even better transition. So,
Thank
nice
you.
job.
I have one short question regarding perhaps my most valued program that we offered, which is your Sources of Strength program at Churchill and the high school. You had mentioned, when we saw the slide showing some of the activities that the kids were involved in, that in the coming year you have, a whole group of kids all lined up ready to participate. And one of my questions is that when you first explained this program to me, it was more the idea of trying to find children and, student leaders from different...
All the groups.
different groups. So
That's right.
I just want to make sure that, what we're not seeing is kids that just want to put this on their,
Right. On their
activities
resume,
list,
right.
on the resume, that we're really cultivating kids that are going to be able to reach others
Right.
within their school.
Absolutely, that's a great point.
environments.
So all of the students that have either requested to be part of the program or who get nominated through the teachers are vetted through the counseling department as well as the teachers who may have nominated to make sure that this is an appropriate candidate. And what we're looking for in the peer leaders is not the straight A AP student. What we're looking for is a student who has good morals and values and who has a good connection to the people within their peer group, whatever that peer group might look like. and who can be a connector and reach those students and be a leader amongst that group. And if they see someone hurting, or if they see that a student is stressed or in distress and needs some support, can be able to reach out and express to them, come with me, let me get you hooked up with someone who can help you. What we don't want is the students carrying that burden of other students' stress, because as a student, as someone under 18 years old, you're really not prepared to cope with or counsel your peers. You need some help and support, and they need help and support, especially if they're really in distress. So the purpose of the program is really to identify those connectors, they're called. They're students who are within their own individual group, who are leaders in their peer group, and have them be part of the program.
That's something that was really nice, especially at the high school this year, is we had a lot of activities that were sponsored by Sources of Strength, open to all students. So, you know, there were volleyball games after school. There was adult coloring parties during midterms to de-stress. We had a vision board workshop, and, you know, getting those Sources of Strength kids to say to their friends, like, oh, hey, you look really stressed out. You have a lot of tests. Why don't you come with me to this coloring activity? So that's the type of stuff that we want to do, is get those kids connected to positive coping strategies.
And not exclude anyone. Everyone is welcome to then come and participate in these activities, which then speaks to the reduction of school violence, the increase of the school climate. It's getting those other kids, the school community, involved in a positive activity.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.